The 4-man lineup of Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart has a plus 12 net rating in 534 non-trash time possessions, ranks in the 96th percentile among high usage lineups, according to Clearing the Glass data. Okay, what that tells you, just in layman's terms, is Celtics are really good when those 4 guys are on the floor together. Like, it's not like this is a Marcus Smart problem. He just, I don't know. I think because he doesn't fill out the box score in a lot of the ways that people would like him to, or, he's gotten shot happy. He doesn't always have the best shot selection. The shooting percentages are down, and he's got a little bit of, I don't know, entitlement in his attitude at times, or at least that comes off during some of his, media availability. People are just ready to ship the guy out of town. And I don't think he is the issue.
Well, the thing to look at too is like, okay, so that's a great stat, no question. But what happens when you remove one of those guys? How bad is a crater? Because it looks like on the court, it craters quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So if those core 4 guys are great together and they don't spend a lot of time on the floor together, right? Because they're all in and out of certain protocols or
that's the league or whatever. So that's the league now. Right. Guys are in and out all the time.
It's just the way, but like, so why is there such a dramatic drop off when you remove one of those guys? Why can't it be like, and that's an indictment basically on everybody in that lineup. Like, once you take one guy out of there, the numbers skew, and I don't have them in front of me, so I can't, like, obviously.
Well, or does it start? We've danced around this discussion plenty of times on past shows. Does it go back to the first year head coach? And
right.
As Glash brought up earlier, a lack of scheme and system on,
plug a
quite
piece
frankly,
in,
both sides of the ball.
The same, right?
Yeah,
it should still look somewhat the same when you plug in a Pritchard, a Neesmith, or a Langford, and it doesn't, or it does, but then they go away from it in the fourth quarter of a game. Yeah. And I have no problem. Like, I get why Smart might feel some entitlement. He's the longest tenured.
He's been a top 6 pick.
He's the only guy that likes to talk.
Whatever to me, but I think he's been. But I miss the Bridgie version of Marcus Smart, where every possession meant something. And I think sometimes he cares a lot on possessions, but there are other possessions where he just kind of throws it away. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, that's not the guy you were 4 or 5 years ago. It feels broken.
He's never really struck me as a mail it in kind of guy.
Not mail it in, but chucking up a 3 then when maybe you shouldn't have. I just feel like that balances out a hustle play.
It can. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think anyone out there is listening who's expecting me to know what the answer is, or Evan, or the listeners themselves.
But you can admit the least risky move if they were to shake it up. If you had to pick one of the 3, you're picking Smart.
No question. I mean, obviously, if you're talking about just NBA futures, right? Never mind where we are right now, but NBA futures. Tatum and Brown are all-stars. They have all NBA ceilings. They have, I think most people would look at Tatum more so than Brown as having a Hall of Fame trajectory. Nobody's looking at Marcus Smart as anything more than, at his highest, all defensive first team, and a guy who can be a contributor on offense, and a starter, but not, an all-star, not all of these other things that maybe there was the potential for earlier in his career when the shooting percentages were ticking up, as opposed to obviously sort of peaking and going back down. So yes, moving a Marcus Smart is the least detrimental to your roster in terms of feeling like, you could exhibit a whole lot of regret down the road. But I think the question is, which again is unanswerable until he's no longer a Celtic, is what impact does it actually have? Meaning, is it also the least impactful move you can make on the floor, in the sense that, yeah, you can move Marcus Smart, but nothing's really going to change all that much. You're gonna have a few less quote unquote winning plays, hustle plays, and maybe a little bit better overall shot selection, and ultimately you're still a middling team. So right. Good on you. You traded a favorable contract, or at the very least not a bad contract, and didn't get anything that swayed you the other way in return.
I'm concerned that the play of Tatum, Brown, and/or Smart, it does not feel like it's spreading to the rest of the locker room. They don't play together. And maybe If you move a Smart, again, you might be right, but if they move Smart, maybe that opens the door for an Aaron Nesmith to have more of a, not necessarily a vocal say, but more of a say on the floor, to be a little more aggressive. Someone maybe takes that ownership of being the hustle guy. Romeo Langford, it feels like, even though he hasn't been knocking him down, he feels like he's kind of embraced a shoot off the catch guy and play good defense. Maybe they feel more confident in those roles, that type of opening occurs if they move out a Marcus Smart. But it's not, their play is not contagious, the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And that Minnesota game, to me, reeks of that. And like you've been talking about, coaching might be a problem, because in theory, you have a system in place. Next man up, a guy slides in and they should be playing in the same intensity. Shouldn't be too much of a miscommunication. And man, it looked like that the other night. But that's one of many examples. And you both have mentioned it's an outlier as far as just how bad it was, but it's kind of still the same thing where we're trying to figure out, okay, if you move off Richardson, you move Schroeder, maybe you move Smart, can this next wave of these first round picks, is there anything there? Is there any value to these players? And we're still wondering that.
You know what I want, guys? We can end with this, and by all means, if each of you has your own, then sprinkle them in. But call it a Christmas wish, or it's not a New Year's resolution. Maybe it's a hope for the new year. However you want to label this stupid thing. Here's all I want from the Boston Celtics to then sort of gauge where we're at. And I bet this would be number one on Brad Stevens' list as well, because we haven't had it in literally years, plural years. One word:
health,
continuity. Just give me some continuity. Give me a month where, and I know that's probably not realistic here in health and safety protocol times, but outside of that, let's find a way to, as Adam Silver wants to, play through it, get beyond it, shorten the isolation time, as the NBA and the PA are talking about. Whatever, just give me a month of seeing what this team looks like, healthy and together, and we can. It's so lame. It feels like an excuse to sit here and say we don't feel like we know what they have, but it's true. I think that's true for a lot of different teams. That's not a Celtics specific problem, as you guys have both talked about. But we're not going to know. We're not going to have a clue what this team's potential is based on the guys that are on this roster, like the important guys. No disrespect to the Schroeders.
Yeah, but how can you say that when they? But how can you say that though when they went on a run without Kyrie and Hayward?
How long ago was that?
I know, but it's the same players, minus Rozier.
That's what's frustrating.
Right, but we basically haven't had a healthy team since then.
They haven't had a healthy team since Hayward went down 5 minutes.
That's my point. We haven't seen a healthy Celtics product since then. So if we could just, get a month and a half of seeing what this team looks like healthy, maybe we'd all be in a much better place. Or conversely, we'd sit here and say, okay, turns out it is broken. It's definitively broken. It's not COVID broken or injury broken or attitude. It's broken. It needs to be fixed. We just don't know. And I'm not sure we're ever going to know. I think Brad's probably going to have to make a move before we know, because, wish all you want. This team's just not all of a sudden going to be together for a month and a half. It's again, my hope for the new year, my Christmas wish, my whatever. I just don't think it's going to happen. My last thought would be, and I hate saying this because I hope it's not true, but we might have to start worrying about the health of, is Jaylen Brown, can he be healthy sustainably? That's legit. Is he made of glass? Yeah, we have to start actually thinking about that, because what if he isn't, right? You're never going to get your wish, A, and B, you might miss out on an opportunity to move him, because what if the Celtics spot that problem ahead of time and go, we got to move him before he loses more value. And maybe they go get Beal, and maybe they go get Lillard. I'm just throwing out two names. Sure, and maybe you prove to be right. Maybe you prove to be right by getting out ahead of it and look at it and go, we had to move Jaylen, not because he's not talented, and him and Tatum get along off the floor, definitely. And they're coming along maybe on the floor. We'd like to think so.
That's something you have to look at big picture too, I think, is like, because Tatum, for the most part, has been pretty good about staying healthy, not out long periods of time.
No, he plays. I mean,
An Iron Man, really. If you
COVID.
think about it, he's an Iron Man. Tatum,
Yeah.
outside
Yeah.
of
So I don't know. I mean, maybe that.
I mean,
and maybe that. Look,
He hadn't
Koff, to
missed
your
a game
point,
all year before entering protocols.
yes, maybe that's what leads to the frustration on the court and why they can't figure it out. It's like they're still really young kids, and he looks at it and goes, Tatum, more specifically, I can't get into a rhythm with anybody. Like, they tell me to pass more, and then it's a new dude in and out of the lineup every night. Like, maybe that's, and he looks at it and goes, Bradley Beal's not missing games in Washington. And I think he did miss a few games this year. Lillard, of course, gets hurt for the first time in his career this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what it is. So
Could be.
that's something they have to think about. Take talent out of it. Health is a big part of it too. Never mind the COVID, but injuries.